All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and call us to order here. Get my screens lined up. There we go. All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to call this to order. Today is May 24th, 2022, and this is a meeting of Seattle's Redistricting Commission. This commission is comprised of appointed members of the public and is responsible for overseeing the development of new city council district lines in response to the completed 2020 census. Meeting materials, minutes, and additional information are found at seattle.gov/redistricting. This meeting is scheduled from now until 1:10, and we welcome your participation during the public comment periods. Before we get started with official business, we'd like to acknowledge that we are located on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically the Duwamish, Suquamish, Stillaguamish, and Muckleshoot tribes, people that are still here and continue to honor their heritage. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, so I noted that the minutes for the May 15th. Well, I guess which minutes are we on? There were three sets of minutes that were.
I was hoping a both and.
Okay, I just wanted to note that the minutes for the first public forum in the title of the minutes just had the wrong time frame. I think it's correct within the minutes, but it said from noon to 1:30, and I think the forum was 1 to 2:30.
Yeah, you're talking about the header.
Yeah, the header.
Okay. All right. With that proposed change, are we able to vote? Yeah, I think so. All those in favor of approving minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, minutes for both meetings are approved. All right, so in an effort to share with the public that the commissioners are receiving and reviewing public comment, we ask at each meeting to affirm review of the received comments as emailed to us in the tracker. Commissioners, have you received and reviewed the public comment as listed and sent out to us?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful. I think that might be our first time with no tech issues, so congratulations. Commissioners, now I would ask that if you've had any interactions, communication, or meetings that you would like to disclose, please do so now. All right, hearing none, moving along. Now we are going to move into the first of two sections for public comment today. This is an opportunity to share directly with the commission I'll pause here. Commissioner O'Sullivan?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we've approved the agenda, but I wanted to propose an additional item to the agenda for today's meeting.
I am sorry, I think I skipped that. Yes, so shall we approve the agenda?
At the last meeting, we mentioned including an item on the agenda where we start talking about line drawing and how we see it. So Commissioner Nichols and we've all had a little bit of a discussion about what we're thinking about the line between District 1 and District 2. And so if we can include an item in the agenda where we start talking about lines, I think that'll help us start moving in that direction.
Other commissioners? Okay.
Good idea.
That is good with me. I will ask staff, if possible, to update the agenda for the public, and we can put that. I have a feeling the discussion on the second or additional public forums will go rather quickly, so we can put it there as well. All right, all those in favor of adopting the amended agenda?
Aye.
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 All right, hearing none, it is approved. All right, next, or back to the first section of public comment. This is an opportunity to share directly with the commission your preferences in creating maps, your community, your individual priorities, and about how well the current lines represent your community. We hope to hear if you have specific suggestions on where boundaries should be placed and the major priorities you hope we hold while making our own decisions. Each speaker will have 2 minutes, and we begin with those that have signed up online. I'd like to confirm with staff that we have no speakers signed up for this meeting ahead of time. Elsa or Logan?
Confirmed, yeah. No one has signed up online.
All right. For those that are here in the meeting, is there anyone who would like to give testimony at this time? I'll ask one more time. Is there anyone here in the meeting that would like to give testimony at this time? Joseph Lockman.
Hello, commissioners. Again, this is Joseph Shoji Lockman. Thank you again for making some time for public comment. I did just want to plug again that we were really grateful, of course, for that the commission went forward with the District 2 hearing. I just wanted to make sure that we followed up on some of the feedback that I think a lot of the folks in the meeting provided, and that's, I know the last meeting there'd been the discussion from one of the deputy city attorneys talking about, the possibility of having a different in-person feedback session, again, like in district. And I'm hoping that the district, that the commission will entertain that idea, since a lot of our folks, were not able to be there in person for different reasons. And of course, the commissioners were not there. And I think there's a lot more feedback that folks are looking to give, also because how early we were in the schedule, and also just because our own work as Redistricting Justice for Seattle has been moving forward, and we've been working to develop so preferences among community members for what they'd actually like to see in the mapping. So again, I would hope you would consider that. And also wanted to express appreciation to Commissioner O'Sullivan for suggesting the agenda item about actually discussing map specifics, since that was a concern that we had at the state level, that a lot of times the actual discussion of boundaries was not going on in front of the public audience there. So again, thank you all for being very thoughtful and considerate with this, and we look forward to talking more with you.
Thank you so much. And I would just like to add, there has been no previous discussion amongst commissioners about those lines that has not been in public view. So I just want to make sure that that is abundantly clear to the public. We are not having those conversations yet. So next up, is there anybody else who would like to have testimony at this time? We'll have a second call near the end of the meeting. All right, hearing none, we're going to go ahead and move forward. At this time, now we're going to move in. I apologize, folks. My script for today's meeting is off, so I'm sure you're seeing that as well. But we'll be spending some time talking through the recent public forum that we just all attended, providing our feedback, thoughts, and takeaways, and then potentially moving directly into the proposal for potentially a second forum in that district. So opening it up to my fellow commissioners.
I'll jump in. I thought it was great to have so much public feedback and really specific information that we can use and put into practice. So I thought overall, and the format and the presentation from kicking us off, I thought that was great. I do have one suggestion for the slide deck, but it's kind of a detail I could share later on. But overall, I thought I was happy that we got so much public comment that was useful.
Commissioner O'Sullivan.
I wonder, particularly as we get into in-person, well, I guess maybe even if I don't know if there's a way to do it technologically, but it would be really helpful if we had a way of having a map available to the public commenters so that they could point to the where they have concerns and show, like, on the map which communities that they want to keep together. I mean, obviously it's helpful for them to say this community and this community and this community, but I think it might be even more impactful if they're in person and they can stand next to a big map and say, these are the communities that we think have like interests, or even if they're on the computer and with their mouse they can be pointing to a map that everybody's able to see. This might be a big request of staff to try to coordinate, but if that would be possible, I think it'd be really helpful.
Commissioner Malava, or excuse me, Commissioner Shaw.
Just responding to that, in the sessions I've had with our GIS consultants, we've been able to share the screen so I can have the mouse and, they're kind of on the other end redrawing the maps and doing kind of the technical stuff, but I can take the mouse and say, can you zoom into this area, or can we, so it seems like that, but it's been a setup, I don't, we might have to set that up with staff so that there's one computer that's able to do that, or talk through it. I don't know how you share it with participants in a 2-minute, it takes setup to do that, but I was able to.
I think it's an excellent idea, in particular, given the level of specific feedback that we received from even the last public hearing in District 2, to have a tool that really hones into looking at the feasibility of some of what we're hearing, because we may be limited by criteria in terms of what lines we're able to move to what point, and being able to show in a practicable way at a session will be helpful. And I do wonder, layering on that, about the interest from the public commenters on having the smaller meeting with us as commissioners. I do think there is value in looking at providing that additional platform or opportunity for community to provide feedback. And that can be kept as a public meeting, but I think I had loud and clear the interest from community members in District 2 in particular to meet with us as commissioners.
So 2 takeaways from my perspective from that forum. One is definitely there's an interest to have more interaction with us as commissioners. I think that I would encourage the public to reach out to us individually to schedule meetings, which I think we have not gotten a lot of yet, but I think all of us are open and potentially willing to do that, and allows a lot more interface with us. So I do encourage the public to do that. I think the second thing is, and this is perhaps a legal point of information that maybe we just need, or maybe just me, when you look at the precincts specifically around many of the areas that the public have been given comment on, the geographic footprint of many of the precincts are wildly different. And so there's a huge precinct in Soto that is, as we are doing our individual work, at least in my work, has become something of an outlier compared to all the other precincts. How the public wants those precincts moved specifically, and why that precinct in particular is so big, is something I would look for either the GIS consultant or Ariel or someone else to give us feedback on, just because the size is so odd. Ariel.
Thanks, Commissioner. When you're talking about precinct, I was just looking to get a little more information about what that means. When you're referring to it, what do you mean, police precinct, or do you mean? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner, you're on mute.
Census block?
The census block, I'm sorry.
Got it. Okay. Let me look into it. I can also coordinate. I can also work with Dennis to give you an answer for the next meeting. I'll have that information right off the top of my head.
Thank you. Any other feedback from the last public forum? Commissioner Nichols.
It was good. I'm glad that we went ahead with it. I think that was the right decision. It is interesting that a fair number of the people weren't from District 2. I think we even had one Kent resident who testified, and that's fine. But I think it speaks to our later meetings being not district specific, particularly once we've redrawn the district lines in a draft, bringing it together and sharing those perspectives more generally, I think would be more helpful. I want to congratulate the coalition for redistricting justice. They've done a nice job. We had, I think most of the speakers were members of that coalition, and I think their message, particularly about I-5 as being the eastern boundary of District 1 and the western boundary of District 2 is very effective. I think it makes sense, and I think it's something that we can use at least as a starting point as we look at those two districts.
All right. So at this time, I'd like to move us on into a conversation that arose from that public forum around the need or potential need for an additional forum specifically focused on District 2. And this came as a direct request from Commissioner Malaba during the forum. So Commissioner Malaba, maybe you can kick us off.
I think we had loud and clear from the public interest to have an opportunity with the commissioners and talk more about District 2. In particular, how do we keep a lot of the areas not split between District 1 and 2 as we move forward? And this would be an opportunity for us to have an up-close conversation with the organized community groups. And I do think it's worth really giving an opportunity to do that. I appreciate, Chair, that you're raising for the public the opportunity for them to reach out to us individually, but I think there will be value to meet with us as a commission in some capacity sooner.
Other commissioners' thoughts?
I would just suggest that there are going to be issues unique to each district. And if we set a precedent here, we probably will get more requests for that from, I think District 7 is going to change more than any other district. And I just think there's an interesting precedent that would be set by focusing a second hearing only on one district when we just had a session for that district.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I do wonder if, since we still have weekly meetings on the books, we could designate longer periods of times in these Wednesday meetings for public comment and try to divide it between, if we get the similar interest from different districts, to, chunk it out so that you're hearing comments from, together about each district. We could kind of organize it that way, since we already, if we want to have more time for public comment. But otherwise, I agree with Commissioner Nichols. It's, we'll end up with 7 additional public forums potentially.
Commissioner O'Sullivan?
So, I think this is something, I think this is an issue that we need to keep on the table. We had clearly had far more participation from District 2 than we did from District 1, and it wasn't that long after our District 1 event. So it seems like there's just a lot more activity and a lot more input from certain communities and certain areas. And so I'm not saying I want to make a decision right now about whether to hold an additional District 2 forum, but if it turns out that we have a whole lot of need for to hear from members from certain districts, that more so than others, I think we should keep that on the table as an option. I agree with Commissioner Shaw that we should encourage members to make comment during these meetings that we're holding. But let's see what sort of input we get from the other districts and whether there's as much interest in having. My guess is there's going to be a whole lot of interest in District 2 and District 3, and I don't know. We'll see how many requests there are for additional input from the other districts, but I definitely want to keep that option on the table.
So I appreciate the suggestion from, Commissioner Malaba.
Sorry, Chair. I just want to highlight that the sensitivity in particular for District 2 and 3 is really high in terms of the communities that we will aim to keep together and some that we may not even be able to ultimately do so in a final map. And that's why I see the value in us navigating considerations and criteria around that in close, dedicated time with community. And I think we'll see that in District 3 likely as well. So if we could think proactively about an opportunity for community to really have a conversation with us as a commission, I think that would set us up for longer term success. And I'm sure there will be other districts where issues are coming up, but we may need to be surgical in looking proactively about those communities we're trying to keep together.
Commissioner Sullivan?
And I'll just note that something that distinguishes District 2 from District 1. So District 1 is necessarily going to have to expand geographically, meaning that there isn't anybody who currently lives in District 1 who's likely to be cut out of District 1, right? So that may be a reason that there's a lot more interest from other districts, and that pattern may persist. So I guess I think it's not too likely that, just because we're giving more time to District 2, then all of a sudden everybody else is going to request more time. I think there's necessarily going to be certain districts that, because of the nature of the process, are going to want and need more input.
So I am highly sensitive to what we heard at the forum for additional interface with commissioners. I think that, we have a District 3 forum coming up, right? That shares a border with 2. That is an additional forum in which many of the concerns of District 2 will have some space to be brought up. I think that we also need to be highly sensitive of the fact that District 7 had a huge increase of communities of color, which are going to share, I think, similar splitting concerns around not breaking up those communities that are living in those regions. I think Commissioner Shaw's suggestion of maybe themed specific drill down into District 2 during these weekly meetings is perhaps a good compromise. I want to make sure that if the District 3 forum does not highlight a bunch of these issues, then I'm not sure a whole nother forum is necessary, right? Like, that is the natural next forum that we have already set up that many District 2 residents should be going to as well, because that is the next place to focus on. Are there thoughts around that? Or have I missed the mark?
No.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Commissioner Malaba, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I'll be going with majority here, but I do still believe that it's worth us making time to really connect with communities in District 2. I think District 2 is distinct in their experience with gentrification and their experience over the years with many people who've been pushed out of the community. And that's why you still have voices who are speaking from Kent, because that's the reality of where we are in terms of people's access to housing. So there's a lot of issues that we should proactively be considering, in particular for District 2 and 3. But we'll go with what works best for the larger commission.
Do you have okay. So I guess what I will propose is that we move and encourage as much participation in the District 3 forum. That's our immediate next forum related to issues for both District 2 and 3, as I think it naturally would have been. And then I would like to maybe come back to this conversation later in the summer and see when and where we schedule a second one, so that all of these forums are open to everyone in Seattle and everyone in Kent and everywhere else that wants to participate. And then we'll come back to it at that time. Does that sound acceptable to the commission?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
And then if we hear additional comment from folks around utilizing these weekly meetings differently, again, to Commissioner Shaw's suggestion, we can also do that on a more timely basis. All right. So moving on, we now move into the agenda item that Commissioner O'Sullivan had suggested around specific lines in District 2. So I'll let you kick off this conversation, Commissioner O'Sullivan.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Chair Juarez. I want. It seems like we have developed some level of consensus. At least all the comments that I've heard so far from other commissioners that. When we're drawing the line between District 1 and District 2, so the background is that even if we move the current lines for District 1, it's currently at about the Duwamish, and if we move it over to I-5, even if we do that, that still doesn't give us enough population in District 1 for it to work. So there's a couple options that we have. One is lopping off like the south section of Beacon Hill into District 1. Another option is lopping off a north section of Beacon Hill into District 1. Or another option is moving District 1 up into part of downtown. And we have heard comments requesting that we do none of those, but we have to do some of that. And so what I'm hearing from the commission is that there seems to be consensus, and there was pretty adamant public comment at the forum that we not lop off any part of Beacon Hill into District 1. And the result of that would be that we would necessarily need to push District 1 up into downtown. And I agree with that sentiment and want to note that we have had requests from the downtown community to ensure that the downtown community is represented by a single district, and that by abiding by the requests that we're hearing from District 2 is going to necessarily is going to prevent us from abiding by the comments that we've heard that are requesting a unified downtown district. So I want to state that clearly, that it looks like that, and that's the way I'm hoping that we move, but that it's going to upset people in downtown, and they should be on notice of that.
Commissioner Shaw.
Can I just make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying and clarifying that I agree. I think that we heard don't go farther than I-5. Oh, good. We have a map that we're looking at. And so you're saying basically go over to I-5 and go up north into downtown, because it is not possible with the numbers, even though we would desire it to be, to keep all the communities together in District 2 if possible, and keep downtown together if possible. I mean, that would be, that's, I think we've heard both those things, but numerically it's not possible, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard, and that makes sense to me.
Apologies, Commissioner Nichols. I was looking at the map.
Thank you. It's more interesting, I'll grant you. So if we move District 1's boundary to I-5, that adds 3,512 people. That leaves us 2,106 short. I think it's important that the ID remain contiguous and in District 2. And so we would need to have a boundary that would allow District 1 to move north into Pioneer Square and pick up those 2,106 people. I haven't looked at the boundary there and what those census blocks produce, but it seems to me that's a doable thing. Commissioner O'Sullivan mentioned the idea of taking the south end of Beacon. One, I think that would be disruptive to the Beacon Hill community unnecessarily. And two, if you're in West Seattle, trying to get to Rainier Beach is nearly impossible. There aren't, so even though geographically it looks contiguous, it really is not. There's not really a good way for those communities to interact with one another due to the transportation system and how it works. So I think looking north would make more sense. Now that means once you move to I-5, that District 2 needs to pick up 9,471 people, more than the about 6,000 that we've been working on. So that's quite a bit of a move north and east. And that will affect District 3 significantly. So there are issues here, but I think that the idea that I-5 is a good east-west boundary between 1 and 2 makes sense. And then we need to figure out how they interact with District 7 and District 3.
Commissioner O'Sullivan.
And I'll highlight one other comment that I heard, which is that, or maybe clarify my understanding. So through much of South Seattle, I-5 is a logical boundary because it actually follows a geographic hill, right? So I-5 is on the side of a hill, and where I-5 is on the side of Beacon Hill, there is a distinct there are distinct communities on either side of it. However, through the International District, I-5 actually cuts through a community, right? And so I want to be clear that what we're talking about is using I-5 as a boundary where it follows a natural geographic boundary, but that doesn't necessarily, that we may end up, or certainly one of my goals would be to ensure that the International District remains represented, hopefully by the same district that where the north end of Beacon Hill and Little Saigon. We heard a number of comments that those should be kept together. So we wouldn't necessarily be following I-5 all the way up through downtown, because there's a place where it stops being a natural boundary.
So one of the things, and I think this was maybe a nod to what Commissioner Nichols was saying, is that, and this goes to my question of Ariel earlier around the census block, specifically around Lumen Field down to Holgate, all the way down to really Georgetown, is 3 full census blocks that are incredibly large and pose a huge problem for, one, creating the district that uses I-5 as that natural geographic boundary without potentially splitting up other communities of interest. But from the thing that I'm curious about in this is that if you move pieces of Pioneer Square and downtown into District 1, you're able largely to preserve much of the community's aspirations in their testimony that they've given. It forces a much different conversation for District 3 and its boundaries with both 1 and 2. But I think there is some validity in saying that District 1 has some continuity into downtown, potentially as far up as, we're looking at, what street is this? Beyond Cherry for sure. So that's my initial thought, is like, there is a hook that can come off of District 1 into downtown if you use 99 as another geographic feature. I think the built environment conversation, again, to my question a number of meetings ago to the GIS consultants, is how and where are we using the built environment as geographic features to guide our work. I think Commissioner O'Sullivan's point of I-5 against the hill is a natural, logical choice, but I-5 through downtown is a different kind of feature that does not follow geography, but follows policy choice. And as we know, policy choices in many of the features here are products of redlining and other problematic policies that we've inherited. So I wanted to make sure I give that some oxygen. And just to put a fine point on, I think District 1, in my estimation, to meet community needs, and 2, has to extend into downtown. Commissioner Malava, I saw you had a hand up.
Thank you, Chair. And I would concur with District 1 moving into downtown. and really getting a bigger portion of a lot of that area in downtown and protecting District 2, in particular, the Chinatown International District, and not touching the South Beacon Hill area, which was emphasized, I think, in one of the talking points for District, I believe it was between District 2 and District 3. So being able to have District 1 take a larger population size from the downtown area will be helpful. What I'm not clear about, or what I'm wondering about, is how much of downtown we can go further into if we're adding that 5,000 number for District 1 overall. And I'm curious what other commissioners are thinking of how further we go into downtown.
Well, so I just want to note that there, I believe it's example map 1 that keeps District 1 pretty similar, but gives it a big hook into downtown. So it uses almost basically uses only downtown to capture the additional 5,000 residents needed, rather than moving the line to I-5. So if it's possible to have District 1 be the proper population size without even moving it to I-5, then I think the smaller number that we're talking about, if we do move it, at least the southern part of the district borders between 1 and 2 to I-5, then I think it won't be too difficult for District 1 to capture enough residents in downtown to meet the numerical requirement.
So I have a question, and maybe this is a question for the public as well. We heard a lot around, let me pause, as we are all doing our individual map work, and we are just now beginning this conversation. What we did not hear from the public in that forum on District 2 was whether or not District 3 could reasonably accommodate the international district. We didn't hear why the tie between the international district and District 2 was so relevant. And so I think those are things I want to hear from the public. We heard keep it together. We heard keep it in District 2, but we didn't hear if moving to District 3 and the geography of 3 was unacceptable for any reason. And I think that's important data for us to hear from the public.
Did we not hear a bit about the connection, historical connection between International District and Beacon Hill?
We did. I think it's more, we didn't hear if there were other historic connections between the CID and the Central District and other districts that might be in District 3.
Okay.
Other comments, thoughts?
We did hear, fairly strongly keep District 2 as majority, minority, and specifically, keep CID, Beacon Hill, Yesler Terrace, Little Saigon, Rainier Beach, if possible, together. I think we just have to really play with the numbers as far as, if you use I-5 as a boundary, see how far up north you go, and then for District 1, and I think you probably could keep those communities together, but it's still going to have to go quite far up north into District 3. So the question is which, into the fine details of, where are the natural breaking points and what works with the numbers.
Do my fellow commissioners have thoughts on the use of either 520 or 90 as geographic features? And it's okay if there's no answer or preference at the moment. Commissioner O'Sullivan?
Well, so 90 goes through a tunnel, so it's not a logical border through most of that area. 520 is a logical boundary because it also follows the waterway right there, so it's also there's a geographic boundary right there. But I don't think there's any reason that 90 would be a logical border. I think, and I guess, and I'm hoping to play around with this next time I'm working with our GIS consultant. But it seems possible if we move the boundary of so from basically from the I-5, I-90 boundary, I-5, I-90 interchange south, if we move the boundary between District 1 and District 2 to I-5 from there south, I think it will be, and then District 1 goes up into a bit of downtown, I think it will be possible to expand District 2 so that it encompasses North Beacon Hill, the International District, Little Saigon, and Yesler Terrace, and that was the that was what I was hearing from the comments on at the forum. And I think even doing that, the western boundary between District 2 and District 3 will still need to move north a little bit, just so that District 2 has the right numerical, the right number of residents.
So I will just add in the maps that I'm creating on my own. I have not been able to find a way in which District 2 does not go all the way up to 90 in any scenario. And so I think my question was really, if there is the math way to make that happen, I would love to hear it. Because I think this can put community at ease based on what we heard, right? Where they're asking for these communities to be put together and remain together. My biggest point of contention for me intellectually on this is Yesler Terrace. And so I'm particularly interested in hearing my colleagues in the future around where your preferences are there based on public comment and your own estimations.
I'm sorry, Chair, can you say that one more time? What are you having trouble doing in your maps?
The Yesler Terrace area seems to be kind of the point where the maps converge in my sketches. And I think that's where the math becomes tricky, right? Where logically, based on growth, most of District 2 in any scenario goes all the way up to I-90 just because of growth. Like you can't split it anywhere south of that. Where it gets gummed up, at least for me, is Yesler Terrace, because that's where you start seeing the District 1 downtown option come in. It's where District 3 moves downtown as well. And how far north are we able to reasonably push District 2? So yeah, those specific comments from folks would be very helpful.
So District 1, it seems to me that the western boundary of the ID and therefore the eastern boundary of District 1, once you get north, it would be 4th Avenue. 4th Avenue and the stadiums kind of provide a boundary between the International District and Pioneer Square. And so I would look kind of at what is the population west of 4th Avenue. That would get us to the 2,106 folks we needed. And then that kind of defines the western boundary of District 2. And I think you're probably right to pick up 9,471. It's a significant push north and could well be to I-90 where that is now in District 3. But it seems to me that that's kind of what we'll be doing at the retreat, is figuring out the specifics of which census blocks fit together without doing damage to the ID or Pioneer Square or Beacon Hill. So I think that one of the issues that maybe we should put out there now to staff is to help us figure out those numbers. or give us a map that has a big enough census block picture that we can do it ourselves. But I think that's the kind of thing that we'll really hone in on when we get to the retreat.
Commissioner Shaw, I saw you had a hand up.
Yeah, if I'm understanding correctly, if we're moving District 2, it has to move north to catch that 8,000 or 9,000 population. Wouldn't that then enable us to keep the communities of Yesler Terrace and the International District and everything that we've named together? I mean, it's going to be disrupted to District 3, so we'll have to think about what the fine line is. But it seems like that would keep the communities that we're talking about together in District 2 at least. Am I misunderstanding?
No, I think
So I'm not catching. So even if we did go over I-90, does that cause a different problem that I'm not understanding?
No, I think you're correct. I think we're saying the district will move north
Yeah.
no matter what.
Yep.
And where District 1 comes into to downtown hugely influences the western,
How far up?
or excuse me, the western and the southern borders of 3. And so we're just trying to preserve those communities together. Other thoughts? Commissioner Malava? No? Okay. All right. So hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this portion of the meeting. Thank you for brainstorming live with little preparation. Hopefully this was helpful for members of the public and those that are watching to see how we're thinking, as well as our top of mind concerns based on the public input we've received so far. So at this time, I'm going to move us into the second period of public comment. We have no one who has signed up prior to the meeting, and we have some attendees here with us. So at this time, if you would like to provide public comment, please make yourself known by raising your hand. All right, Greg Petrie. Greg, you have 2 minutes. Let's get the timer up. Staff, can we unmute Greg?
I think he has to unmute himself. I gave him permission. There he goes. Okay.
Thanks. Sorry about that. I had a question. There's 2 factors you're trying to work with here. One is you want the districts to be as continuous as possible, but you also want to follow the existing boundaries as much as you can. Which of those are more critical in your view? So that's a question.
That is an excellent question. I don't think we have talked about that as a commission. And I'm not sure, Ariel, you might have some guidance here for us. Are we able to prioritize one over the other, or is this?
Yeah, I mean, the charter prioritizes certain categories. Compact and contiguous are mandatory to the extent practical, following existing district boundaries and other geographic features and natural boundaries. That's to the extent practical. So the charter language kind of does that for us. Once you're in the category of to the extent practical, how you want to prioritize those categories are up to the commission to some degree. I mean, they're all of them are equally to the extent practical. So perhaps in different circumstances, each different considerations will bear out.
And maybe this is a good opportunity after public comment, we can come back to this because I think it's important that the public hear from us, perhaps our feelings on that in particular.
Okay.
Greg, did you have other comments?
Yeah, my problem with that statement is the whole thing is kind of vague, in general terms. I'm used to dealing with sort of harder math stuff. So I'm interested in writing code that could automatically generate these things.
Thank you, Greg. We appreciate it. So at this time, I'll move to the next person.
Chair, can I just maybe provide just a brief response to that?
Sure.
So a couple things. One, that we are dealing with some hard math, which is population, right? So that there's a certain extent to which we can't abide by current boundaries because some districts necessarily have to expand and some districts necessarily have to shrink. The other thing that I want to note is that maps 1 and 2 were drawn using an algorithm, and maps 3 and 4 were drawn by a GIS mapping expert. And as much as we like the idea of using hard and fast rules, I think that most of the feedback that I've seen is pretty highly critical of maps 1 and 2 because there just are certain human factors that need to be taken into account. So I think it's absolutely useful information to see what an algorithm draws, but ultimately the reason why there are 5 people appointed to come together and draw these maps is there are human considerations that have to be taken into account.
And I will just add to the second part of that question around the extent possible and practical where lines currently are. From my own perspective, that is one of the lesser considerations, I believe, because of population growth in the city and how uneven it has been. The lines are not practical in my own personal view. And so I will not be considering the existing lines as anything other than this is what they were. And others, if you'd like to respond to that as well. All right.
I would say that it's a secondary consideration because to the extent practical, we're supposed to do that. So I wouldn't say that it's not a consideration at all, but I agree with you that, you know, it's certainly secondary. And Commissioner O'Sullivan, I think it was well said that we have population is the hard numbers, and then, you know, people and communities are, you know, really important in what we're looking at, and that's not subject to, you know, it's qualitative is not as much as quantitative.
Commissioner Malaba.
Yeah, and I would echo that. I mean, the charter mandates us to really work towards compact and contiguous districts, as well as having that 1% difference between the largest and smallest. And in terms of the geographic boundaries and what we are seeing in terms of growth, I agree with you, Commissioner Chair. That is to be considered to the extent possible, from my perspective.
Thank you for both articulating my viewpoint better than I did. All right, next up, we've got Katie with the Win-Win Network. Katie.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here this afternoon to see you all again from last Thursday. I just one thing I wanted to just make a quick comment on was just one, it's really grateful and great to hear sort of just the conversation today based on the feedback from Thursday. One note is really just the question of really another opportunity to hear from District 2. I just wanted to put one consideration of just that it's not necessarily just that, yes, D3 will provide an opportunity to hear a lot of the similar comments just because it shares a border. I also want to lift up the consideration of time and time to educate and organize. The other districts, District 6 and 7, will have at least 2 more months of engagement with community to be able to turn folks out to those hearings, with the last public hearing, I believe, at the end of July. And so I just wanted to lift that up if there is any opportunity to have that secondary opportunity to be farther away from now, so to be either closer to end of June or in July. I know just hearing from folks that are organizing in community education events where they can really meet folks where they are, that to be able to really get those messages out that just to have that in consideration as well. The last thing I would say also is just with the last point is I lifted this up last Thursday is that this really, from my understanding, is the first opportunity for the public to actually give input on the lines from when they were first developed. This is very new in Seattle. And so again, as much consideration that can be made on, and from what I've heard from community feedback, rather than really just where the original lines are, since those were not necessarily developed from a public input process. And that's the last, but thank you again so much for the time this morning and really appreciate all of your work and service on this commission. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Do we have any other members of the public or fellow commissioners who'd like to give testimony at this time?
Not giving testimony, Chair, but really thanking Katie for her comment and committing to bringing this back up to the Commission's agenda and discussing a possibility of having a meeting in the next month or two with District 2.
Elsa?
Hello, Commissioners. I just wanted to remind everyone that tonight some community groups are organizing a town hall meeting for District 2 and District 3. I will share the information right now. It's on, I think, Rainier Avenue. Radio is putting it together with other organizations. And so I know that they are getting organized and wanted us to make sure that we share it at this meeting as well. And just a call for to see, we have a also a person who's wanting to interview one of the commissioners for South Seattle Emerald newsletter. I want to know if anybody here could take on that interview today. Thank you.
Commissioner Sullivan?
I'm happy to serve as an interviewee if that's there's interest.
All right, thank you for taking that on, Commissioner Sullivan. And Elsa, is that information on the public forum available on our website? Or excuse me, on the community-led event tonight on the website?
Let me check, but I want to see if in the last 2 minutes I can share it here on the screen.
Great.
Oh, okay.
All right, other comments? Ariel?
So sorry, just to clarify, and commissioners, are you in, is there a group of you that's intending to attend this town hall? And if so, let me know so that way I can, I guess, also try to attend and also maybe just remind you of OPMA rules to adhere to if there's a quorum you attend.
Yeah, so it's my understanding, having heard from at least one of the organizers, that commissioners actually were not invited. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, sounds good. If the commissioners are not attending, and this also you just kind of meant this as more about public PSA, that's fine. Commissioners, if any of you are intending to attend, do me a favor and just reach out, and I can just individually go over with you the OPMA rules.
Thank you, Ariel. Appreciate it. Commissioner Malaba?
Just a question. If commissioners attend and make up a quorum, what does that mean for us, Ariel?
That means it's going to be we'll have to follow public meeting rules. Having an opportunity for public comment, which obviously there will be, having a certain level of notice, so on and so forth. I would urge the commission, when it comes to attending these sorts of meetings, to just let us know in advance, so that way we can make sure all of everything checks out.
Commissioner Nichols?
Ariel, you're saying that there is a requirement for public comment?
For a public meeting?
Yeah.
I believe,
I don't think so.
off the top of my head, I'm trying to think about what the new OPMA rules are as have been amended.
I thought it was based on if we had set precedent of, I don't know. This is what I was told, is that we have been in the habit of doing comment that we had to.
No, we
continue.
have, but I'm saying if we go to their town hall or we choose not to have public comment, I believe those are within the bounds, as long as the meeting is
Yeah.
open to and the public is able to observe and see what interaction goes on. I would be very surprised if there was a requirement of public comment. So if 3 of the commissioners went to the town hall, it seems to me that their disclosing that would come pretty close to satisfying, at least back in my day, what the OPMA required.
I just want to just double check on this. I don't want to be saying anything off the cuff that is inaccurate. So let me either do the following. What would be most, first of all, let me do a temperature check with the commissioners. This particular town hall, are any of you intending to attend?
We seem to have been not invited.
Yeah, okay.
It sounds like this is community space that they're organizing together. And if they wanted us to attend, that would have been made a little bit more clear. So I want to respect that.
Okay, so that sounds great. I think we can just put a pin in this discussion. I'm gonna maybe further develop my thoughts on this so that I can share it with you in the future in case there is a meeting in which commissioners would like to attend or want to have the flexibility to attend. Does that sound good?
Yes, thank you. And I think also right before we get to you, maybe a good practice is if there are 2 commissioners in a place already, the 3rd person maybe needs to think critically about whether they want to flip whatever meeting they're about to go into a public meeting, if that is the threshold we reach. I don't know. I would feel deeply uncomfortable of going into community spaces and creating public meetings by our presence. So maybe an informal agreement amongst us is the 3rd one out.
I agree with you.
Juarez, that was kind of my thinking with that as well. So thank you very much.
So the lesson is get there early. All right, Elsa.
I just want to clarify that, yes, this is a community meeting and I'm sharing it for the public as a space where the community can learn about other places where they can learn about redistricting and what communities are saying. And so it is tonight and it is at from 6 to 8. It's a hybrid meeting, so you can go there in person. I know there's going to be food for those hungry ones at 6. You can register and also just go to the Rainier Avenue Radio World app to get into it. So thank you for letting me make this PSA.
All right, thank you so much. Any other comments from my fellow commissioners here? All right. And with that, I think we have concluded our business for the day. Thank you so much, and thank you, Commissioner O'Sullivan.
I just wanted to note, so because there had been some discussion about a month ago about whether or not we were going to need to continue on with meetings every single week. But I think as we continue to hear input, I think my sense is it'll be useful to continue these weekly Tuesday lunchtime meetings, if for nothing else, to give additional opportunities for public comment and additional opportunities for us to have this continuing discussion about how we're seeing the borders take shape when we're working with the consultant. So very specifically, I'm assuming that the next meeting that we are planning on moving forward with the meeting on the 31st, and that the meeting following that will be the 7th. Just confirming that that's everybody else's understanding as well.
I'm assuming at least for the next, couple weeks, and then, everyone's schedule or a lot of schedules change in the summer. For our next forum, are we going to just discuss the order of that, or I'm happy to take our presentation for the next one.
Thank you so much.
And I had just put a little note in the chat about it's a bit of a detail, but the Seattle Times had a really nice visual about the population change. And I don't know if we need permission to use that, but the visual illustration I think is helpful. So I guess that's a request to staff, unless, if any of the commissioners have any issue with that. But if it's possible to do, I think it'd be useful.
Yeah, it's a great graphic. All right, so with that, any other comments, suggestions, questions, updates? All right, I'm seeing and perceiving silence. So with that, thank you for spending part of your afternoon with us, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Minnie. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.